Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Andrew Federici. I'm Vice President of Marketing for Smartcat, the essential language AI platform for the global enterprise. And I have the pleasure of introducing my colleague, Mark Stauffer, who is Senior Manager, Global Learning and Development for Brinks. As a global leader in the field of security products with almost 60,000 employees and operations in over 100 countries, Brinks requires the highest of translation quality standards and fast turnaround times to meet the training needs of its multicultural, multilingual workforce. Today, we'll be talking about best practices to accelerate course delivery and managing and optimizing internal review resources to ensure this optimal translation quality with accelerated turnaround times. I'll show you the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about how to manage this edit and review workflow for optimal results, how to know that AI translation is delivering high quality results, and when to adapt the process to address internal and external considerations. When we think about translation quality and AI translation and human review and edit, we think about internal resources, external resources, how to manage all of this in a way that delivers the best results. With that, I'd love to start with the first question for Mark, which is tell us about the L&D team at Brinks. How is the team structured and what are its functions?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. And first, let me say thank you for having me on this panel, and thanks for everybody who has joined to watch this. So I've been with Brinks for almost 3 years now. I work in the global development, learning and development department, and we don't deal necessarily with frontline training for our employees, the day-to-day operations and things like that. We deal more with corporate training. So we're dealing with things like onboarding for HR, lean methodology, leadership training, things like that. We have a very small group. When I joined the company, there were 3 of us. There was my manager and then another colleague of mine. And I kind of did the technical aspect of things, and she did more of the instructional design portion. Now it's only 2 of us. So we do develop our own courseware, but we do use a lot of off-the-shelf courseware as well. Things like Franklin Covey, courses directly from Articulate Rise that Articulate has built. And we'll modify those courses, but our big challenge is to translate them into multiple languages. We are a global organization. So we have people across the world that need this training in their own native languages. And it was a really big challenge for us when we got started, or at least when I got started. Coming in 3 years ago, I was faced with this new translation methodology, and I thought the company I came from, we never translated anything because all of our customers spoke English. However, coming to Brinks, everything needed to be translated. And we would translate into basically 3 major languages, Latin American Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, and then French. And occasionally also French Canadian. We would have an offshoot of that. The reason we only did 3 at the time was because that covered probably about 70 to 80% of our global audience. But there were a lot of countries that said, hey, we want this in Chinese, we want it in Japanese, we want it in Korean, you know, a whole host of other languages. And it was very difficult for us at the time because we were simply using a translation firm. We would have courses that we would send out to this translation company. They would modify the courses and translate them. And then they would send back those courses to us and have our own people then review them, which I'll get into in a little bit. But did I answer all your questions on that one, Andrew?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, and a follow-up to that, when it came to managing review resources, so you mentioned that there are people inside the company that you would ask to review this content. Tell me about some of the pain points and challenges there. I'm sure some of our audience members may have similar challenges when it comes to um, you know, editing and reviewing content.
Mhm.
And also, perhaps a year ago, before you were working with Smartcat's AI translation, how would you, it sounds like, yeah, you had manual human people translating things in an outsourced model. But what were the pain points of that review process? Really curious to hear.
So it's kind of funny because when I came on board at Brinks, I was the newbie. And probably one of the first things that was handed to me was translations because nobody else wanted to deal with it. And I quickly learned that. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I quickly realized that, okay, we send these courses out to the translation companies and they're doing a good job. They're translating them well. The problem was getting our own people to review them. And the communication line between that was basically between the translation company and whoever it was at Brinks in whatever country they were in to communicate back and forth via email. We never necessarily saw the emails unless there was a major problem, but translating certain pieces of content, especially with certain languages, because certain languages were more difficult than others, not because the language is difficult, but because the resources in that country were very, very limited. It would take weeks sometimes, it would take months sometimes, and even in a case, one or two cases I can remember, it took a couple years to get things back, which was just ridiculous because by that time the training was outdated. So that was my biggest pain point, trying to keep reined in all of these different communications that were going back and forth between the translation company and our people. And a lot of times what would happen, the translation company would send out an email to a person at Brinks, and that person didn't even exist anymore. They left Brinks or retired or whatever the case might be. And the translation company wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that because I wasn't really getting the threads at all. So it was just an absolute mess. We would find out these pain points as they arose because things, people would start screaming for, where's my translation? And I'd have to go back and kind of do a history of what's going on with the communication and to realize that either this person doesn't work at Brinks anymore, they no longer want to do this anymore. And that was a big thing too. The people at Brinks, this wasn't their job. They had a full-time job to perform. Translation review wasn't part of their, initial job, but somebody said, okay, this person is a, dual language speaker, so they can review these translations. And then it became such that a lot of people kind of resented our group because we were asking them to actually review these translations.
Got it. And it's interesting, the people you were asking to review and edit these translations, was that their formal day job? Was it how did that process work? What was it, as I'm sure other people attending this webinar probably have similar challenges there, but how did that
Yeah,
work?
none of them were professional linguists. They just had the skill that they spoke their native language plus English, so they could read the English and read the translated version and see if it made sense. Another thing though too, which was very difficult, was when they would, if we got somebody to review, they wouldn't actually edit anything in the translated course. They would just send comments back to the translator, and then the translator would have to implement those. Then the translator would send it back to them for another review, and it was just back and forth, back and forth. It was really bad. And again, there were a lot of people that did not like our department just because we needed them to do these reviews. And we didn't pick the people. We just went to the country and said, do you have someone who can review? And they would assign them. But still, they saw us as the enemy because we had to ask them to review these things.
Got it. Well, yeah, I've certainly heard similar stories of internal review processes. So we appreciate you sharing that. What was your dream solution at the time when you were in this moment of challenge? What were you thinking about in terms of what could help you manage this better?
I honestly didn't know what I didn't know, right? Because this was the first experience I had with translation. I had never really done it before with my prior company. So I didn't know what was available. I was extremely interested in that time in AI, however, and I could see how AI was basically changing the world, especially when it came to learning and development. And I was reading an article. I don't remember what the article was anymore, but I saw a phrase in that article simply called, and it was about translation, and it was called CAT. And I was like, wonder what CAT is. And after doing a little bit of research, I saw that it's computer aided translation. And I love technology. I love having computers do my work for me. So it really piqued my interest. I started to research it. I found a couple companies that do it, Smartcat being one of them. And I thought, the way we do it now is ridiculous. I wonder if this cat solution or a cat solution can help us out with these major pain points. So I set up some demos and quickly realized that, okay, this is the future. It's an amazing thing to be able to send a file to a system like this and get it translated within seconds and get the result back in seconds. Now that's the AI version of the translation, but still, just to have something that got back to me that quickly was just absolutely amazing. And another thing that really excited me was that I could see the flow of everything that was happening. So with traditional translation, we would send out a file to the translation company, and I wouldn't have any idea what's going on with it. Is it being translated? Is it being reviewed? I wouldn't know until, I would have bi-weekly meetings with the translation company to see what the progress was on certain things. And I had spreadsheets to try to figure out, okay, this particular course is done in this language, but it's not done in this other language. And it was really difficult to keep track of. So the computer aided translation interfaces allowed me to have full visibility into everything that I was trying to get done. I could look at any project that I uploaded to the system and could see exactly what point of the process that project was in. So that really, really excited me.
Thank you. And yes, for those who are on the webinar, we're going to show a demonstration of how to collaborate, how to manage review resources inside the product later in this conversation, as well as how to translate an XLIF file in seconds. So look forward to sharing that with all of you. And what about consistency, Mark? I think a lot of L&D teams are anxious to make sure that content is consistent and terminology is consistent. And it sounds like in the process you're describing that you had before software could help you. I can't imagine keeping that consistency in that manual email back and forth was probably tricky. What was that like?
Sure. So let me just say up front too, obviously, like I had mentioned, I had looked at a couple different computer aided translation companies, and Smartcat by far was above and beyond any of the other ones that I saw for a bunch of reasons. One of them was the consistency aspect, and I'll talk about that in a second. A couple other things I want to mention are the interface itself was far superior to any other tool that I had looked at. The ease of use with the interface and so forth. The other thing is something called the marketplace. If you're not familiar with it, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But that was a huge selling point for us. As far as the consistency goes, one of the things that computer-aided translation can do for you is it will build a glossary of terms and basically a database of everything that you ever have translated. So the more you use the system, the better it's going to get at it doing the automated translation for you, because it's going to see phrases, words, sentences that it's already seen, right, from past projects. And the glossary is something that I can add phrases to that are specific to Brinks in my company. And we can tell it, we never want the word Brinks translated. It's always going to be in English, or, you know, whatever word it might be or phrase it might be. I can always say, never translate this, and it will do that every single time. We have a lot of different countries that tend to want to do things on their own, and we're trying to solidify Brinks as a global organization and make it so that we are consistent in our branding, we are consistent in our voice, we are consistent in our message. And Smartcat has definitely helped with that using the glossary. You know, I can put in things in there that should be said the same way, no matter what country the Brinks employee is in. So,
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully that resonates with the audience here. I think keeping things consistent and on brand and on message and all the right terminology, I think, is one of the powerful things about AI in the mix. And Mark, in terms of the process of, let's say, AI translation plus the marketplace you mentioned, which is a specific proprietary piece of the Smartcat platform, which is this network of 500,000 people around the world that can help you. How do you, and I know we'll look at this in the product in a little bit, but how does that workflow come to life? How do you use these two pieces of AI plus the human to generate high quality and consistency?
sure. So let me just talk about the very first project we ever did with Smartcat, because this was really our standard of, you know, did we make the right decision? I was tasked with a RISE project. It probably had, I don't know, 10 lessons in it or so. It was a pretty big RISE project. It had multiple videos in it, plus the RISE. It had multiple linked documents that all needed to be translated. And I believe when we first signed the contract, I had about a month to translate everything, which using our old system would have never, ever happened. I would have been lucky to have it done in 6 months. But then something happened in the time that we signed the contract, or we were going to sign the contract. Something got delayed, and it ended up I had 2 weeks then to finish the project. So I uploaded all the files, and within literally probably less than a minute, I had all of the files translated with the using the AI translation. Then what I did, I went out to the marketplace, and the marketplace is probably one of my favorite aspects of Smartcat. I was able to choose individual language speakers, native language speakers in each language. Oh, by the way, that huge RISE content, I didn't have to translate it into 3 languages. I had to translate it into, I believe it was 15 or 17 languages at the time, which we had never done before. We had never, you know, every once in a while we would do a one-off language with the other translation company, but we never did all of our languages that we needed in one shot. And the deadline was approaching, and I think it was a few days before the deadline, I had every single language done. Everything was translated, and it was all reviewed by professional linguists. Honestly, the hardest part of doing that project was getting the information out of Articulate. So I had to get all the video files, I had to get all the documents that were included, and I had to get the XLIF file, which I'm going to show you all that in a few minutes. But then you have to put it all back together again. So I had everything translated, but because the way RISE courses are built, you actually have to reassemble them back in RISE. So that was the most time-consuming part of this, because I had so many languages to do it in. But as far as the Smartcat end goes, I had stuff back way faster than I ever thought I would get it back. It was just an amazing experience.
Got it. And Mark, in terms of automating that process. I know you and I were talking about this one click, AI sourcing of linguists that can
Yep.
happen. Maybe share a little bit about that. Um,
Yeah. So what I always like to call it the magic button. So you can do the marketplace in multiple ways. One of the ways is you can just look at every single language, review the linguist. You can read a bio about them. You can see, what they are going to charge per word to do the review, things like that. Um, but there was also this button called autopilot, and I loved the autopilot button because I would basically do the AI translation, took care of it all for me, and I would go back to the project and I would turn that autopilot button on, and Smartcat then takes over for you. So they assign the linguists, they make sure that the linguists are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's just an incredible experience because I really didn't have to deal with the linguists at all. Um, and the cool thing is you can look at every single file that you're translating it into whatever language, and it will give you a percentage of how close it is to being done. So you have a very visual representation of where you are in the status of your project. Is the entire project 70% done? Is it 100% done? Whatever. It's all right there on the screen for you. Another thing I loved about the marketplace is that if we had to hire linguists like that, we would have to send invoices and, deal with all the billing aspect. That is all done through Smartcat. I get an invoice, I go up to a pay button, I click the pay button, put in the credit card information, and boom, they're paid. So I don't have to deal with the linguist really at all, unless they have a question about something. I'll get an email about that. But other than that, it's kind of seamless and it's all done in the background. And I just absolutely love that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's when you have to scale internal resources for languages perhaps that you don't have expertise in or don't have offices in, it's a very easy way to accomplish what you need to get done. So when you think, Mark, about the process a year ago where it was manual email back and forth and maybe inconsistency and the time delay was tricky, and the way you manage this sort of review and edit process and the AI that's learning, how have things changed over time?
So we've kind of honed the process now with any of our translations. So basically, we do a 3-task project now. So the first task is the AI translation. The second task is typically the marketplace review. So we have the professional linguist review everything. And we've added a third task, which is really great. And it's really seamless to the way this works. We then get another review, but from internal people. Now, we don't do it for every single language because a lot of countries have very limited resources, and they say as long as the professional linguist looked at it, we're good with it. Certain countries, though, want to look at it even after the fact. So I can actually assign internal people just using an email address. They can get invited to the Smartcat platform. And the nice thing about it, no matter what I'm having them review, whether it's a RISE course, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's a email, text, whether it's a Word document, PDF, whatever it might be, even an Excel spreadsheet, everything in Smartcat looks the same to the person that's reviewing. So you're going to have one side of the screen that is, your native language, which in our case is English. And the other side of the screen will be the translated language. And the reviewer can go and look at the English text and then look at the target text and see how they match up. If the target text isn't something that they want the way it's, have it said the way they want it said, they can simply edit that text and go through line by line for each one of these pairs, the English and then the target, make all of their edits. And then once they're done, when I download that file, it's going to be the native file that it was uploaded in. So in other words, if I'm uploading an Excel spreadsheet that got translated, I'm going to get an Excel spreadsheet back, even though the person that was looking at the text and reviewing the text saw it in basically a 2-column format. if I upload a video, they're going to see a 2 columns, English and target. And then when I download it, I get a video back, or I get a closed caption file back, depending on the way I want it back. So it's just an amazing product. Whatever you upload, when you download it again, the translated version, it's going to be in the same format that you uploaded it in, which to me is fantastic.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, and I know you and I were talking about, and this I can believe would be very relevant for our audience, is that learning and development teams don't just have, let's say, XLIF or SCORM or courses. They have other materials that they need
Yeah.
localized, PowerPoints, videos, as you said, Excel. And so when you have a platform that can support all of those file types and help you keep consistent with them, and the AI is learning all the time and making sure things are appropriate, it can really be an incredible transformation.
Yeah, one of the things that we didn't realize about Smartcat, or at least we didn't think about it. It's not that we didn't realize it, but we really didn't think about it. We thought we were only going to be using this for courses, right? And it
Right.
wasn't long before people in the company started seeing this and they're like, oh, can you edit or can you translate this email for me? Can you translate this PDF file for me? Can you translate, whatever? So now it's being used. I would say probably e-learning is maybe 50% of what we translate. Very soon after we got it, we translated a company-wide survey into, I forget how many languages that was. It was gigantic. And I can't tell you how happy our VP of talent was to get that survey translated as quickly as we were able to do it. So
Thank you. That's great. And I see the questions coming in. Thank you so much for the questions. They're awesome. We will answer every one of them live at towards the end of this as we collect them. So please, thank you for your patience. Why don't we jump into the product itself? And maybe Mark, you can show the audience the projects and marketplace, and maybe some of the communication that goes on, because I think the thing you were talking to me about was all that email, all that back and forth is now in Smartcat, where people can leave comments and message and things like that.
yep,
So thank
absolutely.
you.
So, and we are going to get to talk about a demo about doing Excel files. I'm going to try to get you through step by step in just a little bit, but I just wanted to show you this. So this is a project I'm working on. This is the name of the course. And you can see the course has multiple files in it. So I have an XLIF file. So that's the RISE file. I have, 3 MP4 files. And I have another Word document here that is linked within the XLIF file. Now, the way I work, because RISE courses have so many files with them, I like to do each RISE course as its own project. So I name the project with the name of the language after it. I could upload I basically could upload all of the files I need for every language that I need this course into, but with RISE courses especially, to me, it gets a little messy because there's so many files involved with each one. So I tend to keep my RISE courses separate for each language. If this were just a video, or if it were just an email that I was going to edit, or some other type of file, I would probably upload that file with as many languages as I need to translate it into as a project. So you would see like the Spanish, you would see the French, you would see the German, whatever it might be. So I just wanted to point that out. But what I want to show you on this page is these are all the files that are involved here. This particular project, I'm using 2 tasks. I'm using the AI translation, and I'm also using post-editing using the marketplace. So you can see my first task, and I just did this right before we started. The first task, the AI got completed. It translated 5 files for a total of 9,308 words. And it did that within a matter of seconds. I uploaded it and hit go, basically, and it came back and said, that one's completed. The post-editing now, I can go ahead and invite marketplace people, and it will give me a list of the best suppliers that it thinks are good for the tasks that I'm asking it for. And you can see you'll get a cost of what it will cost for each one of these suppliers. I could invite all three of these, and there's more suppliers that I can invite. There's, like Andrew said, there's over 500,000 different linguists in the marketplace. But typically I would pick one of these three, or I could pick all three. And the cool thing is when I send out the invitation, the first person that responds will be the person that gets the job. So I don't have to deal with any of that. I could just say, okay, yay, whoever wants to do it quick, first, let's do it. And I would hit send in invites. Another thing I can do is I could, if I want my own people to review this, I could simply add them to my team. Now I've added a bunch of people here that work at Brinks, and I could choose one of them and say, hey, go ahead and review this particular project, and they'll go through and do it basically the same way as the linguist would do it. So just wanted to show you that real quick. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask Jean-Luc to bring up what it looks like to do a RISE course, and we'll just walk you through this step by step.
Thank you, Mark. And as we're doing that, just to remind the audience, Mark was showing his team in the marketplace. You can have as many team members as you want in Smartcat. There's no seat model. It's unlimited seats. So you never are constrained with how many people you can collaborate with inside the platform. Over to you, Jean-Luc. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I'll let you do the driving here for the presentation.
Yep. So this is actually the very first project that we translated in Smartcat. And what you're seeing it in RISE. And there's a few things you need to do when you translate a RISE course. So I don't know if any of you are familiar, or some of you may be familiar, but RISE and Storyline, for that matter, have a function called XLIF files. And there may be other e-learnings out there that do it the same way. But basically, an XLIF file is simply an XML document that formats the document with tags so that it knows where to put the titles, it knows where to put your paragraph text, it knows where to put button text, things like that. So it's a really handy file to have for translation. And a lot of translation companies use XLIF files and know how to deal with XLIF files. To do a RISE course, like I had mentioned before, you have to get the XLIF file, you have to get any videos that you have in the file. If you have audio files, you have to get those out. And you have to get any other types of documents that you might have linked within your RISE course. And because we use a lot of RISE courses that are built by Articulate, like we start with those, we don't have access to the videos. Now, if you're doing your own course and you do your own videos, you're going to have the MP4 files already. You're going to have any documents that you add to it already, things like that. But if you're editing a course that you got from somebody else, you may not have the media files or the asset files. There is a way to get them, however. So yesterday, we published this course. So just using the publish feature and turning it into a zip file. And what we're going to show you is, so here's Jean-Luc doing the, just the normal RISE publishing. Let's show the zip file now that was created by doing that publish. And if you open up the zip file, it's going to look a mess because it's a SCORM package at this point. But everything that's in that course is in this SCORM package zip file. So you want to go into SCORM content, and then you just start looking around for anything that has, in my case, I want to get the MP4s out. So I look for anything that has an MP4. So here's the different folders. And this does take a little bit of patience because you have to look through each folder to see, what is in that folder. But I would pull out the MP4 files. So I would just save those, you could just extract the entire file and then just save out the files that you need. So any of the MP4 files. I found with RISE courses, there's also a folder called RLB, I think it is. And that usually has some MP4 files in it also. So you just have to be careful and look around and see what you can find. But the nice thing is they actually name the files when you within this SCORM file, they name the video files and the audio files and so forth exactly the name that you see when you edit it within Rise. So you'll know exactly what video goes with what portion of Rise. Once you have that, let's go back to Rise itself. The first step you need to do to get the XLIF file, and this is the most important thing, XLIF files are extremely unique. They put a unique identifier in each one. So the first thing you need to do is make a duplicate copy of whatever course you are going to translate. And what you want to do, every single language needs to be its own file. So what John Luke is doing here, he's renamed the file and he's putting the name of the language that you're going to translate it into within that. And you would do this for as many languages as you need. So in my case, we did this, I think it was 17 different languages. I had 17 copies of this particular course that I had to keep track of. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, I found really helpful within Rise, make folders to put stuff in. So I make a folder for every single language that I'm translating into, and then put that that copy of the language in that folder. We're not going to do that today because we're only basically showing this as a demo with the steps. But typically, the more organized you can be with this, with Rise, the better, because it does get a little messy after a while because you have so many files that you're dealing with. Let's go into the Spanish one, John Luke, and then to get the XLIF file out, what you're going to do is you're going to go into the Settings tab, and we've already done step 1, and step 2 is Export XLIF file, and just give it a spot where you want to put it, and that quickly it's finished. Okay, so now what we'll do, we have all the files that we need to translate. We have the XLIF file, we have the videos. Now we can go into Smartcat. So go ahead and let's create a project for this. And let's do the second one, AI translations and post editing. So these are templates that you can set up, and these templates allow you to basically set up a workflow. So I have a couple different templates that I use, but these are nice because you can put kind of all your defaults in as the way you want to set up your project. Let's give it a project name of, I don't care, Project 1 Spanish or something. And you can put a deadline. Now, the deadline is for the marketplace reviewers. So when they see that deadline, they're going to know that that's the amount of time they have to get back to you, all the reviews. And just go ahead and create project. And once we have this, it's going to ask us to upload our file. So go ahead and upload the XLIF file. And let's just do one of the videos for now. Perfect. And hit finish. And what you're going to see is Smartcat doing its thing. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention about Smartcat, because this was one of our big selling points also. Smartcat, when you add multiple languages, is going to look for the best natural language processor it can find to do the translation. So what does that mean? Well, some people use DeepL, some people use Google Translate, some people use, whatever other popular ones are out there, but they don't all translate the same way. Certain models translate better for certain languages. So Smartcat, if I have, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Khmer, I believe that's the way it's pronounced, Japanese, 3 different versions of Chinese, all that, Smartcat looks at every single one and says, okay, this natural language processor works really good for Japanese, or this one works really good for Portuguese. And it will pick the correct natural language processor. So it's not using all DeepL, or it's not using all Google Translate in the background. It's using the best one that's currently available, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Because the better your translation, your AI translation is, the easier time your marketplace reviewers or your internal reviewers are going to have when they go ahead and review it. Okay, so you see that the project is 50% done. Well, that's because we gave it 2 different tasks. We gave it the AI translation task, and we gave it the post-editing task. We haven't started the post-editing task yet. So that's why the project as a whole is 50% done. Go ahead into the Files tab for me. And you're going to see now, you'll see the XLIF file and the MP4 file. So at this point, let's say I went through the marketplace. We're not going to do that right now, but let's say I had it reviewed by the marketplace came back, all the edits are done. I can now download these files so that I can put them back into Rise. So go ahead and download the XLIF file, and then just hover over or click on the MP4 one, because I want to point something out here. Do the drop down arrow on there. So there's a couple different ways you can download an MP4 while you're not actually always downloading the MP4. You can either download a closed captioning file for it in two different styles, SRT or VTT. I forget which one Rise uses. Or you can download an actual MP4 with the burned in subtitles. Now, when we first started, I was just downloading the closed captioning files and putting them back into Rise. And what I quickly found out was when people, let's say someone from, I don't know, Mexico, they would come back to me and say, the videos aren't translated. What they didn't understand was they had to click on the CC button on the video within Rise to get the translation to come up. And I was getting that issue, quote unquote issue, a lot from different countries. And what I decided to do was, you know what, I'm not going to use closed captioning files anymore. I'm going to actually burn in the subtitles. So as soon as they start to play that in Rise, those subtitles will be there for them. And since I started doing that, I don't get any complaints anymore. So that's just something to think about when you're doing this. Okay, so we have those files downloaded. So let's go back into Rise real quick. And we're going to do step 3, import translated text. So Jean-Luc is going to pick that XLIF file. And once that's done, you can see the title has already changed. Let's go into the course itself. And there you have the entire course translated. Now, well, I shouldn't say entire course because the video isn't translated. So you have to actually go in, find that video now, and replace the video with the one that we just had translated. Another thing that will not translate, and this, I'm just going to give you a tip on this one. Okay, good. You found the video. So let's go ahead and, well, you don't have to, they get the idea, but I would have to actually go in and edit this and then replace that video with the translated version. Another thing that won't translate are graphic images, PNG files, JPEG files. But what I found is that if you can create your graphics in PowerPoint and make sure that all the text in that graphic are actual text boxes and not graphics of text, you can actually save those PowerPoint slides as JPEG images after they're translated. So basically what I'll do when we create a course ourselves, any graphics that we need, we create them as a PowerPoint deck. I then upload that PowerPoint deck to Smartcat, get all the text translated, bring it back down as a PowerPoint deck, and then I go in and say, save this PowerPoint deck as individual JPEG files, and it'll save every single slide as a JPEG or a PNG, whichever one I want to use. And now I have all of my graphics translated as individual graphics files that have been translated. So that's just a tip that I've found to work really well.
That's great. Thank you both, Jean-Luc and Mark, for taking us through this demonstration. We have some great questions that I want to make sure we get to. And I think I'll start with the first one. This is Christian Hartman. How do you deal with security? Think about Brinks as a security company. I think this might be something you and I answer together, Mark. But how do you deal with security when using AI for translation for your internal training, or in how is it stored and used?
I can't answer the where it's stored or used. I'll let you answer that, Andrew.
Sure.
But I will tell you that our IT department came to me a couple months ago with a stack of documents that needed to be filled out. I mean, it was a stack. They saw they saw AI in the title, and this is something new for Brinks because this has just happened within the last 6 months, but they have taken the bull by the horns and really made it tough to get any vendor that has AI in their title to work with Brinks. Smartcat did a fantastic job. I think my customer support rep wanted to kill me by the time it was done. But I mean, there was emails going back and forth for weeks. Fill this out, fill this out, fill this out. And Smartcat rose to the occasion and we finally got it. Well, I didn't do anything, but Smartcat, got it done. And I just thank them for that because it was unbelievable what I saw that they had to go through to get Brinks to agree to this. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And we store, we're a SOC 2 compliant organization, and we store data where you need it to be stored, depending on the region. So that's something that we're flexible on. Second question, how does Smartcat check their marketplace resources? So we have a number of checks and balances to vet our linguists and make sure that they are appropriate. And so, and that's something that also is ongoing in terms of their track record and their performance. And there are lots of checks and balances there to make sure that they are delivering on what you need. And so, and the AI will then display the people that are most relevant and specific to you. So it will look at anonymously the content that you're looking to translate in their past content, edit and review and match those anonymously. And that is something a human can't even do. So hopefully that answers
if I
your
could just
question.
add a real quick story to that, Andrew, this just
Sure.
happened to me. I had a project out there. It was multiple languages. And for some reason, the French translator wasn't finishing. And I kept looking at it and I thought, oh, they'll get it finished. They'll get it finished. And then it was Monday, I think, this week, I got something back from the Smartcat person who was monitoring this. And they said, I don't know why, but this particular translator is not getting back. Let me look into it. And within a couple minutes, I got another email back and they said, oh, the translator saw that this project was marked as complete. So they thought that they shouldn't finish it at all. And I said, you know what? That was my problem, I think, because I clicked something that I shouldn't have clicked and inadvertently marked it as complete. So I'm just saying that because the marketplace supervisors or whatever you guys call them are on top of this. They're constantly looking at, are the marketplace linguists doing a good job and are they on time and everything else? So I was like thrilled when I saw that email come by.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. There's a question on cost. Please follow up with me directly on that. Let's see here. Do PDFs and PNGs come back in the same file format? Does content need readjusting if wording is longer in a different language? And actually, Mark, you deal with a lot of left to right language. So this question is going from left to right in Arabic, but do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So PNGs, they're not going to translate because it's a graphic file. So unless you have the original file, whether it's Illustrator or, Photoshop or whatever, the text has to be text, right? Now, you can put a PNG up there, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I've only done it once, but it'll bring back a Word document with the text, but then you have to go back into the original file and copy and paste those translated text. So it basically does a screen scrape of that graphic, finds whatever words it can find, and it will translate those. But it won't give you a PNG back that's already translated. So just be aware of that. PDF files are no problem. They come back translated. You may have to adjust, though, the sizing. Now, the right to left is a huge issue. I think PDFs work properly. It all depends on the native format that the file's in, whether that, like in this case, Adobe can handle right to left languages. I found very early on that Rise does not handle right to left languages, and I'm really kind of upset about it because we do Hebrew and Arabic, and I can't use the Rise courses because Rise is the one who doesn't display them correctly. So you have to be careful of that. But Smartcat, remember, Smartcat's only translating the words. And when you look at it in the review cycle, they are right to left. Like if you look at the Smartcat interface, they are all right to left. It's when that you bring it back into whatever program you're bringing it back into, it may not be right to left because that particular program doesn't handle right to left. So
Thank you, Mark. Question from Robin. What is the pricing for marketplace resources? So I think you might have seen in Mark's demonstration that the price per linguist will come up as the AI is finding them for you. So you can see that there. And I'd love to talk to you, Robin, about pricing in general after this. So please feel free to reach out to me, Andrew@smartcat.ai. And I'd love to get into that. Let's see here. Is French Canadian a language offered by Smartcat?
it is.
Jean-Luc, yeah, it
Absolutely,
absolutely
yes.
is.
Yeah, all the flavors of French for sure in Smartcat.
Yeah, we have a native French speaker on the call right now, Jean-Luc. Okay, I'm very interested to know how this is from Jim, AI engine learns. Is this automatic? Does it learn automatically from manual post-editing process? We translate similar subject matter content and want to maximize the accuracy of the AI translation. Thank you, Jim, for this question. The answer is yes. It learns automatically from every edit that your team makes. And that's why the more people on the platform, and again, it's unlimited seats, the more it will learn from your knowledge and be consistent. So thanks for that question. Can Smartcat translate Canva, I think, or Adobe Illustrator files? Jean-Luc, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Canva, we don't have support yet. And I think it's also on Canva side because they don't have any APIs to allow us, for example, like we do for Figma. We have a great connector for Figma, but for Canva at the moment, we don't. And Adobe Illustrator, this is something that the team is looking into it at the moment. And we have there are some scripts available to extract the text from Adobe Illustrator and put it in Smartcat. But the team is looking to do possibly a tighter integration, so we can get back to you on that. So.
Thank you, Jean-Luc. And I have a question from Christian Hartman. Thank you for this question. Why did you not show AI dubbing? The answer is we are launching the self-service AI dubbing in 2 weeks. So this will be available in the product before the end of June. We're super excited about it. It's AI dubbing in as many languages as we translate, which is over 250. So anyone interested in AI dubbing, it is coming very, very soon. So I think you'll be quite impressed with it. So thank you for the question, Christian.
And that's definitely something that we will be using.
Yes, I know everyone is very excited about that. I think we've answered all of the questions at this point. If anyone has additional, let me just see. I think there's some coming through the chat and some coming through the Q&A. So let me just open that. Let's see.
Andrew, while you're doing that, I saw one in there about storyline files. And as far as I know, storyline files are exactly the same, the way they do the XLIF and videos and so forth. So yes, you can certainly translate storyline files as well.
In Storyline, I think, Mark, you have to be very careful because you have two options. You can export either XLIF or Word files. So you want to make sure to choose to export the XLIF file, not the Word files, because the Word files are bilingual and you would not be able to bring them back in Smartcat. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've answered. I think Mark, Lasry, anything on pricing or cost, please feel free to reach out to me, Andrew@smartcat.ai. I'm happy to answer that question. Thank you all. Thank you, Christina. Really appreciate all of your time. I hope we've answered all the questions. If not, please reach out to me, Andrew@smartcat.ai. And we really appreciate you coming to this webinar. Look forward to AI dubbing. I do want to mention that we have released a AI course generator. Last week, we were at ATD and unveiled this new product. So you can create any learning materials you want through AI, quizzes, courses, micro learnings, and everything in between. We were just demoing this for Mark, and he helped us in the development of it, and it is truly an incredible product. Thank you for that testimonial, real time. So anyone interested in learning about we call it generative AI course or learning content creation, please reach out to me, Andrew@smartcat.ai. We'd love to show you a demo of this. And you can find a full demo on our YouTube channel, Smartcat's YouTube channel. So thank you all so much and look forward to talking with you. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
Thank
Jean-Luc.
you.
So appreciative. Have a good day.